The bell rang, signaling the end of yet another school day at Ekuna High School. Students hurried through the hallways, eager to leave, but not Rina. She walked slowly, clutching her books to her chest, her eyes cast downwards to avoid the usual taunts and sneers. Every day felt like a struggle, and the one place that should have felt safe, school, was anything but. Rina was a quiet girl, often lost in the background. Her family wasn't wealthy, and she didn't wear the latest fashions. She was an easy target for Anya, the most popular girl in school, who seemed to make it her mission to remind Rina of her place in the school's social hierarchy. Anya was everything Rina wasn't: confident, outgoing, and surrounded by friends. But beneath her polished exterior, Anya carried a secret pain. She had been raised in a wealthy family, but she had always felt a strange emptiness inside, a sense that something was missing, though she couldn't quite put her finger on what it was. Today was no different. As Rina made her way to the school gate, she heard Anya's voice call out to her. "Hey, Rina. Where are you rushing off to? You can't be in that much of a hurry to go back to your shack." Rina felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment, but she kept her head down, pretending not to hear. Anya and her friends circled her like a pack of wolves, their laughter sharp and cruel. "Did you even wash your hair today?" Anya sneered, flipping her own perfectly styled hair over her shoulder. Rina didn't respond. She had learned that saying nothing was the best way to endure these encounters. She just wanted to get home, where she could be alone with her thoughts and the memories of her mother, who had died years ago. But Anya wasn't done. She reached out and knocked the books out of Rina's hands, sending them sprawling across the pavement. "Oops, my bad," she said with a smirk. Rina knelt to gather her things, her hands trembling. She could feel the tears welling up, but she blinked them back, determined not to cry in front of Anya. She had to be strong, if not for herself, then for her mother's memory. Anya and her friends finally lost interest and walked away, laughing and chatting as if nothing had happened. Rina watched them go, feeling the weight of their cruelty pressing down on her. She didn't understand why Anya hated her so much. They had never been friends, never even spoken much before the bullying started. But Anya's attacks had grown more frequent and more vicious over the past year, and Rina couldn't figure out why. As she walked home, Rina tried to push the thoughts out of her mind, but they lingered like a dark cloud, shadowing her every step. The next day at school, Rina did her best to keep a low profile. She avoided Anya and her clique, choosing instead to spend her break in the library, surrounded by the comforting silence of books. It was the one place where she felt safe, where the noise of the outside world couldn't reach her. As she sat at a table near the back, engrossed in a novel, a shadow fell over her book. Rina looked up to see a tall, older man with kind eyes and a weathered face standing in front of her. "Excuse me, are you Rina?" the man asked in a soft voice. Rina blinked in surprise. "Yes, I am. Who are you?" "My name is Uncle Kofi." "I knew your mother," he said, his tone gentle but firm. Rina's heart skipped a beat at the mention of her mother. "You knew my mother? How? I've never heard of you before." Uncle Kofi smiled sadly. "It's a long story, one that I think you need to hear. But it's not just about your mother, Rina. It's about you too." Rina felt a strange sense of foreboding. "What do you mean?" Uncle Kofi sighed and pulled up a chair, sitting down across from her. "Your mother and I were close friends back when we were young. She confided in me about many things, including something she never told anyone else, something she planned to tell you when you were old enough." Rina leaned forward, her curiosity piqued despite the fear gnawing at her insides. "What is it?" Uncle Kofi hesitated for a moment, as if unsure how to begin. "Rina, you have a twin sister." Rina's world tilted on its axis. "A twin sister? That's impossible. My mother never mentioned anything about a sister." I know it sounds unbelievable, but it's true, Uncle Kofi said, his eyes filled with sincerity. When you were both born, there was a terrible mix-up at the hospital. Your mother only realized the mistake much later, but by then, it was too late. You were separated at birth, and your sister was taken by another family. Rina felt like she was in a dream, one she couldn't wake up from. Why didn't she tell me? She wanted to protect you, to keep you from the pain of knowing you had a sister out there somewhere. But she always intended to find your sister and reunite you both. Unfortunately, she passed away before she could make that happen. Rina's mind was racing. A sister? How could this be true? Where is she now? My sister. Uncle Kofi hesitated again, as if the next words were even harder to say. She's closer than you think, Rina. Your sister is Anya. Rina's breath caught in her throat. Anya. The same Anya who had made her life a living hell for the past year. It didn't make any sense. No, that can't be right, Rina whispered, shaking her head in disbelief. Anya hates me. She's always hated me. Uncle Kofi reached out and took Rina's hand, his grip warm and reassuring. I know this is a lot to take in, but it's the truth. Anya doesn't know the truth either. She has no idea that you're her sister. Rina felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. How could this be happening? All the anger, the pain, the bullying, it was all because of a secret neither of them knew. What do I do now? Rina asked, her voice trembling with emotion. First, you need to take some time to process this, Uncle Kofi said gently. But eventually, you'll need to talk to Anya. She deserves to know the truth, just as you did. Rina nodded numbly, her mind spinning with a million thoughts. She couldn't imagine how Anya would react or how she herself would cope with this new reality. But one thing was certain, her life was never going to be the same again. The days that followed were some of the hardest of Rina's life. She walked through the school hallways in a daze, her mind consumed by the revelation that Anya was her sister. Every time she saw Anya, a mix of emotions surged within her: anger, confusion, sadness, and a deep, overwhelming sense of loss. How was she supposed to face Anya knowing what she now knew? How could she even begin to bridge the gap between them, a gap that had been widened by years of bullying and cruelty? Rina kept Uncle Kofi's secret close to her chest, unable to bring herself to share it with anyone, not even her closest friends. She felt isolated, as though she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. Meanwhile, Anya continued her usual routine, blissfully unaware of the truth. She still taunted Rina whenever she had the chance, still basked in the attention of her friends. But something had changed in the way Rina saw her. Every sharp word, every cruel joke, now cut deeper because Rina knew that Anya was her sister, her lost twin. One afternoon, Rina was sitting alone in the library, staring blankly at a textbook, when she felt a presence beside her. She looked up to see Anya standing there, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. What's wrong with you? Anya demanded, her voice harsh. You've been acting weird lately, more than usual. Not that I care, but you're creeping everyone out. Rina felt a surge of anger rise within her, but she forced herself to stay calm. Nothing's wrong, she replied, her voice strained. Anya scoffed. Please. You look like you've seen a ghost. Rina's heart pounded in her chest. How could she even begin to explain what was going on inside her? How could she tell Anya the truth? I'm fine, Anya, she said quietly, avoiding her gaze. But Anya wasn't convinced. She leaned closer, her eyes narrowing. You're hiding something. What is it? Rina swallowed hard, feeling the pressure build. She couldn't keep this secret any longer, it was tearing her apart. But she couldn't just blurt it out either. How could she tell Anya that they were sisters, that they had been separated at birth? I can't talk about it right now, Rina finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Anya's eyes flashed with frustration. Why not? What are you so scared of? Rina bit her lip, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to spill over. She couldn't do this, not here, not now. Just leave me alone, Anya, she said, her voice trembling. Anya stared at her for a long moment, as if trying to figure out what was going on. But then she let out a half of annoyance and turned to leave. Whatever, Rina. You're such a freak, she muttered as she walked away. Rina watched her go, her heart aching with the weight of the secret she carried. How could she ever bring herself to tell Anya the truth? And how would Anya react when she finally did? Days turned into weeks, and Rina continued to struggle with the knowledge of her connection to Anya. The burden of the secret was becoming unbearable, and it was starting to affect every aspect of her life. She found it difficult to concentrate in class, her grades began to slip, and she withdrew even further from her friends. The bullying didn't stop either. In fact, it seemed to intensify as Anya grew more frustrated with Rina's strange behavior. Anya couldn't understand why Rina had suddenly become so distant, so different. It was almost as if Rina knew something that Anya didn't, and that only fueled Anya's anger. One afternoon, during lunch break, things finally came to a head. Rina was sitting alone in the school courtyard, trying to eat her lunch in peace, when Anya and her friends approached her. Look at her, Anya sneered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Sitting all by herself, like a little lost puppy. Pathetic. Rina clenched her fists, trying to ignore the taunts. She just wanted to get through the day without any more confrontations. But Anya wasn't going to let it go. She walked right up to Rina, standing over her with a look of disdain. You think you're better than us now, huh? Just because you're acting all mysterious. Rina shook her head, refusing to engage. But Anya wasn't having it. She grabbed Rina's lunch tray and tossed it onto the ground, sending food scattering across the pavement. Say something, Rina. Anya demanded, her voice filled with fury. Or are you too scared to stand up for yourself? Rina felt something inside her snap. All the pain, all the anger, all the hurt she had been holding in for so long came rushing to the surface. She stood up, her eyes blazing with emotion. Why do you hate me so much, Anya? Rina shouted, her voice shaking with pent-up frustration. What did I ever do to you? Anya was taken aback by the sudden outburst, but she quickly recovered, her expression hardening. You're just a nobody, Rina. That's why. No, that's not it. Rina cried, her voice breaking. You're hiding something too, aren't you? You don't even know why you hate me. The courtyard had gone silent, and all eyes were on the two girls. Anya's friends shifted uncomfortably, sensing that something was seriously wrong. Anya's face flashed with anger and confusion. What are you talking about, Rina? You're not making any sense. Rina took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. This was it. She couldn't keep the secret any longer. You don't hate me because of who I am, Anya, Rina said, her voice trembling. You hate me because you don't know the truth. You don't know that we're sisters. Anya stared at her, her expression one of shock and disbelief. What? What are you talking about? It's true, Rina continued, her voice filled with emotion. We were separated at birth, Anya. We are twins. You're my sister. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Anya's face went pale, and her friends exchanged confused glances. The words hung in the air, heavy and full of meaning, as if the entire world had shifted on its axis. But then Anya's expression hardened again, her eyes narrowing in disbelief. You're lying, she spat. This is just some sick joke. I'm not lying, Rina insisted, tears streaming down her face. I found out from someone who knew our mother. It's the truth, Anya. Anya shook her head, refusing to believe it. No, it's not true. It can't be. But the doubt was there, creeping into her voice, into her eyes. She turned and ran, pushing past her friends, leaving Rina standing alone in the courtyard, her heart breaking. The secret was out, but the consequences were far from over. Rina had no idea how Anya would react, or if they could ever find a way to move forward from the truth. The revelation of their sisterhood spread like wildfire through the school. Rumors flew, and everyone seemed to have an opinion on the shocking news. Some were sympathetic, others skeptical, but the consensus was clear: nothing would ever be the same between Rina and Anya. Rina spent the next few days in a daze, barely able to process what had happened. She couldn't bring herself to go to school, and when she did, she kept her head down, avoiding the curious stares and whispered conversations. The weight of what she had done, of the truth she had unleashed, pressed down on her like a heavy stone. Meanwhile, Anya was grappling with the news in her own way. She was furious at Rina for turning her world upside down, but deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that there might be some truth to Rina's words. The idea that they were sisters, that they had been separated at birth, was too wild to believe, but it was also too wild to dismiss outright. Anya's friends tried to comfort her, but they didn't know what to say. They had always seen Anya as the confident, unshakable leader of their group, and now she was falling apart in front of them. Anya, maybe you should talk to her, one of her friends suggested cautiously. Maybe there's something to what she's saying. Anya shook her head, refusing to entertain the possibility. No. It's just a lie. She's trying to mess with me. But even as she said the words, doubt gnawed at her insides. What if Rina was telling the truth? What if they really were sisters? Finally, after days of avoiding Rina and trying to ignore the nagging questions in her mind, Anya couldn't take it anymore. She decided to confront Rina once and for all. She found Rina sitting alone in the library, just as she had that day when Uncle Kofi had first revealed the truth. Rina looked up as Anya approached, her eyes wide with apprehension. Anya. Rina began, but Anya cut her off. Don't, Anya snapped, her voice trembling with barely controlled emotion. Don't you dare say another word until you explain everything to me. Right now. Rina nodded, understanding that this was her chance to finally lay everything out in the open. She took a deep breath and began to tell Anya everything, about Uncle Kofi, about their mother, about the mix-up at the hospital. She explained how she had struggled with the secret, how it had torn her apart to know that Anya, the girl who had made her life miserable, was actually her sister. Anya listened in silence, her emotions swelling inside her like a storm. When Rina finished, there was a long, heavy pause. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Anya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I was scared, Rina admitted. I didn't know how you'd react. I didn't want to hurt you, but I couldn't keep it a secret anymore. Anya looked down at the floor, her thoughts racing. It was also overwhelming, the idea that she had a sister, that she had been so cruel to her own flesh and blood. I don't know what to do with this, Rina, Anya finally said, her voice filled with a mixture of anger and sadness. I don't know how to just accept it. I don't either, Rina said softly. But we have to figure it out. We are sisters, Anya. We are family. Anya didn't respond right away. She felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, not sure whether to jump or retreat. Everything she thought she knew about herself, about her life, had been thrown into chaos. I need time, Anya said eventually, her voice hollow. I need time to think about all of this. Rina nodded, understanding. Take all the time you need, Anya. I'll be here when you're ready. Anya turned and walked away, her mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. She didn't know how to feel, didn't know what to believe. All she knew was that her life had changed forever, and she wasn't sure if she could ever go back to the way things were before. Anya's thoughts were consumed by the revelation. The more she tried to dismiss it, the more it seemed to haunt her. She knew she couldn't ignore it forever. If there was even a sliver of truth to what Rina had said, she needed to know.